In the last lecture, we finished our setup, which allowed us to load an item. Now I want to make sure that if we are in the edit mode, we actually don't add a new one, but update the existing one. It starts in the template with the button name. Here, this won't be add at all times. Instead, this will only be add if we, are indeed adding an item. Otherwise, it will be save. So here we can check if edit mode. And if this is true, and I'm using a ternary expression here, I want to output update maybe. Otherwise, if we are not in edit mode, so if we are creating a new item, I will save add. And now with that, we see add as the default, but if I click an item here, this switches to update. Now with that, of course, I also want to change the way we save this. So in onAddItem, right now we always call add ingredient. Now that's not correct if we want to update an existing one. First of all, in the shopping list service, I'll add a new method, which I'll name update ingredient. Update ingredient, and here I expect to get the index of the ingredient which should be updated, and the new ingredient of type ingredient. And with that information, I can simply reach out to my ingredients, get the one with the index I'm looking for, and set it equal to the new ingredient. And thereafter, I want to call ingredients changed and emit my updated ingredients. And as always, just a slice of them as we did before. So with this, I'm now updating the ingredient here. We need to call this method in onAddItem if we are in edit mode. Well, nothing easier than that. We can simply use a if expression, check our mode here. So if edit mode, if edit mode is true, well then I don't want to add a new ingredient. Then I want to reach out to the shopping list service and call update ingredient. And here I will pass my edited item index and my new ingredient. Otherwise, then in this case here, I will call add ingredient. So now if we save this, we should see that indeed, if I change this to 10 here, or 19 because I mistyped, and I click update, it does update here. And the same for tomatoes, it updates here. Of course, also if I rename this to bread. So that's working, that is awesome. Now let's see if it also works if we create a new item, bread. Now it correctly adds a new one. And if we now click on this, we do indeed edit it, so this works fine. However, now I also want to reset the form after updating or creating an item. And I also want to make this clear button work, as well as the delete button. Let's start with resetting the form though in the next lecture. So let's reset the form once we click update or add. Definitely go ahead and try it on your own. Time to pause the video now before I will show you how I would do that. So, were you successful? There is something tricky about that, but let's start with the straightforward part. After we saved our updated value, or either saved the updated value or the new value I should say, we can of course call form reset here. Now if I do this, let's see if it works as expected. If I type bread here, 10, and I click add, it resets, so this works. If I select tomatoes and change this to bread, it updates it to bread. But now we're stuck in the update mode. If I add bread again, maybe 12, it still updates the old one, right? It doesn't add a new one because we never leave the edit mode. The reason for this, of course, is that initially we are in edit mode set to false. Then we switch it to true whenever we get the started editing observable to fire, but we never switch it back. Well, we should switch it back, and actually we only need to switch it back here in onAddItem. Here I can simply call this edit mode and set it to false, no matter what it was before. This ensures that we definitely leave it because we are done. Also, we could rename this onAddItem to simply say onSubmit. because on-add item is not correct all the times. But that is not important. That is just a little cosmetic change. Also rename it in the template then, though. So with this in place, if we now try this again, let's add a new item. That works. Let's add it an existing one, bananas, 2. And now let's try adding schnitzel, 1. Now you see that seems to work again. Now we can correctly update, tomatoes, our items here, and it switches between edit mode and update mode. Of course, I also need to make sure that the delete and clear button works. So let's work on the clear button next. We already finished resetting. The clear button is pretty similar to that. So here I'll add a click listener and I'll execute on clear. And in the TypeScript file, I'll now add the onClear method here. How can we clear our form? Well, we already got access to the form because we added here with viewChild. So I can simply call this slForm reset. And I need to make sure that I also set edit mode back to false. If it was false before, it doesn't hurt. If it wasn't false, I ensure that we leave it. So with this now, if I select the item and I click clear, we're out of it again. So I can now add a new one. And if I'm in already adding one, bananas, and then I hit clear, I simply cancel this. So now I have to start over. But I can still update the existing ones. So that is all working as expected, now with the clear button added. In the last step, I want to make sure that we can delete items we selected here. So we added the resetting and the clear mechanism. Let's now make sure we can delete items. For this, of course, I need another click listener here. And definitely try solving this on your own if you want. So that is your chance to pause the video. If you don't want to solve it on your own, or if you are already finished with it now, well, we can definitely go ahead and do it together. So I'm calling onDelete here when I click the delete button. And I'll add this method to my shopping edit component. Well, in onDelete, what do we need to do here? We need to inform the service that it should remove one of the items in the array. That is basically almost all. We also need to make sure that we call this onClear, because we definitely also want to clear the form if we delete the item which was loaded. Now in a shopping list service, I need to add a method, delete ingredient, and I expect to get the index where I should delete it. With that information, I can simply use my ingredients array and splice one of the elements. Splice allows us to start at a specific point, for example at the index here, and then splice one element, thus removing it. And then of course, as always, we should call ingredients changed. And of course, you could refactor this in its own method, but I think that's okay like this too. So here I will slice or simply pass a copy of my ingredients. And with that, the final step is, before we clear everything, I will reach out to my shopping list service, call delete ingredient, and simply pass the edited item index as a value. Now, this will throw an error if we click delete without loading an item. So therefore, I will simply add ngIf to the button, and I'll just restructure it to make it easier to read. ngIf to only display the button if we are in edit mode. So now by default we don't see delete. If I switch to an item, I can see it and I click it, it resets the form and it deleted the item. Now no more items are left. Of course, I can still add new ones and delete them again. So that is our shopping list form working with the template-driven approach and a lot of other nice features like the service, really showing you how you could set up something like this, how you can use set value, how you can reset the form, and therefore hopefully build the form you need. Now in the next lectures, I will move on to the recipe edit form, which we will create using the reactive approach.